Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 124. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this podcast where I ramble, I talk a lot about upcoming movies that are releasing on streaming or in theaters. I'll give you some pros and cons, give you my own opinions on whether you should check it out, and then also decide whether these films are timeless. Now, April is jam-packed with so many movies. We're starting to get into that phase of the summer blockbusters that are soon to be coming out in May all the way through the summer months. So I'm super excited. And this past weekend, April 11th to the 13th, there was 3 movies that came out. I checked out Drop, I checked out The Amateur, and now on this week's podcast, we're going to be talking about that third movie. But before we talk about that, little housekeeping items that I want to let you guys know about. Timeless Movie Podcast is on platforms such as Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Give us a follow, subscribe, comment. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about the podcast overall. Any feedback is welcome. And also to talk and interact about some of the movies that are going to be releasing in the coming months. Speaking of prior episodes, I just talked about some of the movies that I've seen. If you haven't seen or listened to the reviews of Drop or The Amateur, go check them out. I talked about both of those movies and my thoughts. I enjoyed both, but you're going to have to listen to the podcast in order to see if I considered both timeless. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and jump in to episode 124, in which we are talking about A24's newest film, Warfare. So I'm going to be honest. Typically, I always talk about in this little breakdown before the non-spoiler thoughts about what I'm interested in regards to the movie that's coming up, what got my attention and hooked me to wanting to check this one out in theaters. Funny enough, for Warfare, I actually only saw one trailer. That's it. That's all I saw. I didn't see too much marketing around this film in theaters themselves. I did see it on Instagram and other social media platforms, but only saw one trailer. But I saw the stacked cast, and I saw one important piece, which was who was directing it. So it's actually directed by Ray Mendoza, who is a former veteran, and Alex Garland. And so Alex Garland, if you don't know, has made great movies like Ex Machina, Annihilation, and last year's timeless movie, at least in my opinion, Civil War. And so as soon as I saw that, I was in. I wanted to check out what other types of aspects Alex Garland could add into another war movie. So again, those are just my simple thoughts about the reason why I wanted to watch A24's newest film, Warfare. Let's go ahead and segue into the non-spoiler section, though. I want to talk about this movie a little bit more. Again, I'm not going to spoil it just yet. But now that I got to check out Warfare in theaters, I got to say that this movie was such an excellent time in the theater. I mean, I was captivated by so many things. I mean, the sound was awesome. The visuals that they were able to portray in regards to all the action and war that was going on. And then even just the entire film being filled with tension and moments where you just didn't know what the heck was going to happen to this group of Navy SEALs. I felt the rush. I was just feeling the energy and the vibes of this movie. And there was never a time where it slowed down. I mean, at the beginning, it was initially setting it up, but as soon as chaos starts occurring in this movie, it does not let up. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I enjoyed this movie very much, and I'm ready to just kind of start diving in and spoiling some of it. But before we do, let me go ahead and give you a general synopsis, just in case if you have not seen it and you're curious about it. This little plot synopsis will hopefully give you an idea as to what Warfare is about. Okay, the story is based on true events, but what's so cool is that it's actually, and it frames it on the title card before the movie starts, in that these are actually from memories of the Navy SEALs that were a part of this mission in Iraq in 2006. And the director of this film, or one of the directors, is Ray Mendoza. I mentioned before that he is a war veteran, and he was a part of this mission as a Navy SEAL. And so again, he and his fellow members of the Navy SEALs are just kind of giving us these little glimpses of what it was like during this mission in 2006. So again, it is based on true events, but it all just comes from what these Navy SEALs experienced during that time. And so I really enjoyed that setup, because now it kind of gives you that context and idea as to, oh, okay, we're actually seeing in real time what the heck is going on. And so the Navy SEALs that you're introduced to are the individuals that you're going to really be following throughout the 90 minutes of this film. And so the film drops you into Iraq, and you're following these Navy SEALs as you kind of see the camaraderie, but then eventually you get to see them try to go through in the middle of the night, try to find a home in this little neighborhood of Iraq. And they're basically trying to set up a base so that they can inspect the neighborhood, see if there's any suspicious activity. That way they can report on it and take action as well. Now, as they are inspecting and checking out, they do note a couple of individuals walking around and, noticing that they keep looking at their building. And then before you know it, they end up getting hit with a grenade and they end up being surrounded by the jihad in Iraq. And so immediately the entire mission changes from, not only just inspecting some suspicious activity, but now it changes into an evac mission. And it's basically trying to get these Navy SEALs out of this building and make it out alive. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that gives you enough context as to what this movie is about. I'm not going to spoil everything just yet, but I want to say that overall, this film is filled with so much uneasy moments. It's filled with, again, tension that you're just on the edge of your seat because you just don't know what the heck is going to happen. And I couldn't look away. I was just enthralled by what was going on the big screen. And these are the movies that are made for the theaters. And so as you would expect, because it is something that is made for the theaters, I highly recommend you guys go check this out in a local theater. If you can see it in IMAX, even better, Dolby Cinema, whatever you can. But it's just so impressive because of this loud sound that this film has. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But my recommendation, check Warfare out in theaters. All right, now that I've gone through a little bit of my non-spoiler thoughts of Warfare, let's go ahead and start jumping into a couple of spoilers as to why I liked or maybe didn't like some aspects of this film. So if you have not seen Warfare, please jump out of the video, watch the movie, come back, and as always, comment down below, guys. Would love to interact with all of you in order to see if, we agree on some of our opinions or disagree, and that way we can kind of talk it out. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Pro number one for me of A24's Warfare has got to be the sound design. This is a no-brainer, super easy. The sound design that they developed for this film is just impeccable. It's even like the little details. It's not even something that they're like, oh yeah, this is just a super loud like gunshot or bomb. No, it's even small details when certain characters can't even hear because of a bomb that went off. It simulates like somebody having a kind of muffled hearing and things are just going on all around them. Chaos is just ensuing and they can barely hear anything because a bomb just went off right by them. And so let me kind of jump into one of those moments that really impressed me, which is there was this scene where the Navy SEALs are now in a specific spot where they've been surrounded by some of the jihad here in Iraq. They're getting shot at, and now their only option is to evacuate. So they end up calling for some support. Some tanks come in, and as the Navy SEALs start breaking out into groups and they start getting closer and closer to the tanks, all of a sudden, a bomb goes off. And let me tell you, I usually do not scare easily when it comes to different types of jump scares or things of that nature when I go see a movie. I rarely ever flinch, and I'm not just saying that just to sound tough or anything, because I'm not, but it was such a crazy moment because I literally blinked, and as soon as I blinked, I just hear a loud bomb go off, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I just saw a bunch of smoke, and my body fully twitched. I was so shocked. I was not expecting that bomb to go off, and it just completely caught me off guard. But again, that's what the sound design is intended for. It's supposed to put you in that position of either causing you some type of anxiety or not expecting some crazy moments. So gotta give a shout out for that specific scene, but also even following up on that scene, the specific Navy SEALs that were in the blast radius of that bomb, like I was mentioning before, when they start getting up and walking around, you actually can't hear a lot. Like it's almost like the sound is completely muffled and it's being almost like, again, lowered and blocked because of how loud that bomb was. And I think they really translated very well onto the big screen how that would actually sound if you were in that blast radius. So, love that they were able to design it that way. Also, got to give a shout out to the way that they designed the sound for not only the gunshots, not only the different types of soldiers as they're walking around, or not even soldiers, the Navy SEALs walking around, and everything just sounded so clean. And then there was also these moments where some of the Navy SEALs ended up calling for air support, where they would ask one of their fighter jets just kind of pass by the neighborhood in order to show that, hey, we can start attacking you from the air if you guys keep trying to surround us. And some of these fighter jets would pass right over their building, and the entire theater just felt like it was shaking. It was incredible. I love it. And funny enough, I told my brother after this that like I had actually guaranteed, I made a guarantee to myself that I feel like F1, another movie that's coming out later this year, is going to have the best sound design. Well, after watching A24's Warfare, F1 has got a big challenge to overcome, because through 2025, Warfare has some of the best sound design of any movie that I've seen so far. Shout out to the sound team, the directors, everybody that worked on the sound in this film. Props to you guys. You deserve it. And hopefully there's some awards coming your guys' way. All right. Second pro for me has got to be the chemistry and the camaraderie of all of the Navy SEALs. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but this film is stacked with a lot of well-known actors. You have Will Poulter, Kit Connor, Cosmo Jarvis, you have Michael Gandolfini, Joseph Quinn, Noah Centineo, Charles Melton, DeFaro Woon-A-Tai. I mean, you have so many guys involved in this movie, and not everybody got their time to shine, obviously. Some guys got a couple of lines, a couple of scenes, but what I enjoyed most is their brotherhood felt very real in the film. And right from the get-go, some of the first scenes that you see is all of the Navy SEALs in one room together, vibing out to a song called Call on Me by Eric Prides. And they were just all kind of jamming out to this song. And again, it was the first 5 to 10 minutes, but immediately you could see how well they all got along with each other. And I enjoyed it. And let me say, that song by Eric Prides, Call on Me, I've been listening to it nonstop ever since I left the theater. So it's a great song. Kind of talking a little bit more about why the camaraderie was so good and why this is a pro for me. I also feel like the communication between all the Navy SEALs in this film was also really well done. Even when things were in shambles, when they were getting surrounded by the jihad, when they were getting bombed on or thrown grenades or fired at, none of the Navy SEALs were freaking out. Even when they had injured Navy SEALs, some guys had his legs blown off. But man, even in those moments, none of the guys were ever flustered. Now, some you could actually tell were actually freaking out. At one point, Will Poulter's character, he ended up kind of saying it like to one of his other leads of like, "Hey, my bell is wrong. I'm out of it. I just don't know what's happening." But nobody was stressing out into a way of like that would really harm the team. Instead, everybody was communicating. Everybody knew, okay, let's get involved with air support, or let's call for evac, or let's do this, let's do that. Hey, where's morphine? Let's inject some of these guys with morphine so that they can feel less pain. Everything that was going on when it came to the chaos, they were able to communicate and just show that they were an actual team. It felt believable to me. I enjoyed it. And I think I got to give props to Ray Mendoza. Again, he's the co-director. He actually was a part of this mission. I'm sure he was able to give the actors a lot of those tidbits about how they were able to just communicate and make sure that nobody was either exaggerating their specific emotions, nobody was out of place. Everything just felt like it was just so real, like you were there with them in this building trying to survive and escape. So it's just a job well done by everyone on the team, and just showing off that these Navy SEALs actually had really great chemistry as a team together. All right, and then the last pro that I had, super obvious, I know, but this film is all in real time, and I freaking enjoyed that. I mean, it gave me vibes of Saturday Night. I don't know if anybody had watched Saturday Night last year in 2024. That was another 90-minute video that basically took you through the events of what Lorne Michaels went through 90 minutes before the first airing of Saturday Night. That entire movie was just done all the way through. There was like no breaks. There was, rarely any flashbacks at all. And it was just straight 90 minutes of what happens as Lorne Michaels gets ready for the show. Warfare is exactly the same. You get to meet the team, you see the Navy SEALs, you see who the captains or what everybody's roles are, and then as you go through, every minute is spent on seeing what the heck is happening to this group, how they're being surrounded, and how they're going to try to survive and get out of there alive. Everything is just done for a specific purpose. And what's best about these types of movies that are in real time, there's no filler. Everything and every scene has some type of purpose, either to show a bond between two Navy SEALs or to show how somebody is just trying to brace themselves and try to gain control after a bomb just went off, or seeing somebody just writhe in pain and how they're just trying to stay alive. It's unbelievable, but I just wanted to call that out. Everything felt like there was just straight action all the way through. There is no filler, no breaks, and it delivered a great result. It just feels like there is nonstop action and it doesn't let you breathe. But if you're into those kind of movies, then this really works for you. I know that not everybody really likes a movie that kind of runs in real time and you're just seeing things happen, and sometimes you forget about what happened earlier. But to me, I love living in that kind of chaos and that kind of a tension-filled story where you're just moving scene to scene, following guys, seeing how they're progressing, how they're trying to figure it all out in order to keep those two injured Navy SEALs alive and just not get anybody else hurt. But again, that's my last pro, is just that real-time aspect of this movie. All right, guys, moving on to the cons part of it. I'll make this one quick as well. I actually don't have any cons about Warfare. It's very hard for me to criticize a movie that's based on true events and true memories that folks went through. And so there's really nothing that I can pinpoint. Like I mentioned before, that real-time aspect just works for me. Again, it might not work for everybody else, but so far, after watching it once, I have no cons or negatives to say about Warfare. So this gives us the opportunity to talk more about the positives. Let's jump into our favorite elements of Warfare. So let's start off with favorite performance. I'm going to cop out here. I'm sorry. I actually don't have a favorite performance of one actor, so I'm going to give it to the whole cast. I liked everybody that came out in this film, whether it was Will Poulter or Michael Gandolfini or Joseph Quinn or Charles Melton. Everybody just had a specific role to play. And I think what I appreciated most is everybody was so different and distinct, during their moments of just trying to play their part and their role of the Navy SEALs. Everybody just had something to do. Like DeFaro Woon-A-Tai, he was in charge of, communicating with air support, communicating with all the folks that were around and the other Navy SEALs teams. And then you had Will Poulter, who was like the captain. He was Alpha One, and he had to decide what the heck was going to happen as, folks were getting injured and they didn't know if they were going to get out of this building alive. So everybody had some type of part to play. I can't forget Joseph Quinn. I mean, he was the one that had the role of basically playing an injured soldier and an injured Navy SEAL. And man, was he playing it. I mean, he was screaming at the top of his lungs as soon as he got one of his legs burned completely. And he was just on the floor in pain for most of the film as well. And just trying to, take as much morphine. He was kept asking for more morphine. So everybody had their part to play within this film. I can't just pinpoint one. So again, I'm copping out. I'm giving it to the entire cast of Warfare. Everybody deserves their flowers for this film. All right, moving on to favorite scene of Warfare. I got to give it to Ray, who was played by DeFaro Woon-A-Tai. He actually had a great scene where he was pulling in Sam, and Sam is played by Joseph Quinn. And there's a moment where after the bomb goes off, Sam ends up getting one of his legs completely burned. It's broken. And Ray has to actually pull him from the floor and pull him and drag him all the way inside the building so that he doesn't get hurt, he doesn't get shot or killed. And what's so crazy about the scene is it goes back to the amazing sound design. This is a scene where Ray, because of the blast, he can't hear everything. So everything is muffled. Everything is just completely blocked from his, from the sound that he's hearing. And as he's dragging Sam, and gets into the house, as the kind of the sound starts getting louder and louder, then he starts hearing all the radio through his earphones, and then he starts hearing all the people like, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, here's air support. Hey, call evac. Go all this." He's hearing all of the Navy SEALs talking at the same time that it just becomes so overwhelming that he ends up unplugging his earphones because of all of the noise, and then he just kind of goes silent. That whole scene again, this from the sound design to the way that DeFaro Woon-A-Tai was performing as Ray and just kind of trying to stay composed, but also being in a state of shock because of what the heck is going on. Just so impressive. So that's my favorite scene of basically Ray pulling in Sam and then hearing all the chaos and the communication that he had in his earphones. All right. And then the favorite shot of this movie, I got to go with one of the first shots in this film is actually when the Navy SEALs are trying to find a home base for themselves in Iraq. There's a specific frame where it's in the middle of the night and it's just pointing at a specific house. And then all of a sudden, two lines of Navy SEALs kind of start appearing in that camera shot. And they're slowly walking towards that house. And you can barely hear a footstep. But that one shot in the dark with two lines of Navy SEAL teams, both going towards the house that they're going to call home for the next couple of weeks. That one shot just looked very cool and slick. So that's going to be my favorite shot of Warfare. All right, everybody. That is all of my pros and my literally no cons that I had about Warfare. Hopefully that gave you enough of an idea as to why I enjoyed this movie so much. But here comes the final segment in which we have to decide, is Warfare timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching in the future various different times? As of today, I am going to say that Warfare is not a timeless movie. Now, please understand that this was such a tough decision for me to make. I was going back and forth after I watched it because it has all the elements of what I like in movies. It has the aspect of making me feel a lot of tension. I weirdly enjoy watching movies that kind of make me feel anxious because I don't know what's going to happen. It works so well. The sound design was awesome. The way that it was shot was awesome. But I think why I decide that it's not timeless is because of the type of movie it is, right? It's a war type of movie. And nothing against war movies. I've seen a few of them, but from the ones I've seen, they're usually about trauma that is just so hard to rewatch over and over again. You're seeing people get hurt. You're seeing people die. And so it's very much a type of genre of movie that is not easy to rewatch, right? As compared to a comedy or an action movie. Although there is great action in this film, I think that's one of the reasons why in my head, I'm kind of leaning towards it's not a timeless movie for me. It's just the fact that I don't know if I would want to rewatch this type of just chaos and explosion and people just being blown up. I don't know if I would want to see that every single time or every single year. And I don't know if I'd be in the mood for that. But again, those are just my opinions. What about you guys? What are your thoughts on Warfare? I want to hear. Do you think this movie's timeless? What was your favorite moment? Who was your favorite performance? Leave them down below in the comments. Would love to interact with you guys a little bit more about this movie. All right, everybody. Appreciate all those that stayed all the way through in this podcast to listen to my full thoughts as I rambled on about Warfare. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 124 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode. It is 125. Guess what? Every 5 episodes, we have a guest. It's going to be Omar Vasquez, but we're going to be talking about the new Ryan Coogler movie called Sinners. I am so excited for that movie. It has been one of the top anticipated films that I've had for 2025. Hopefully, it'll be really, really good. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.